Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the cryptoverse. My name is King Wabi the First, and I'm here on behalf of our favorite sponsor, Because Bitcoin. And this is the seventh episode of Crypto World Radio. I'm here by our boy Payne and our special guest today, Chris. Round of applause, round of applause. And I want to ask, if you guys are watching from YouTube, be sure to like and comment any sort of feedback. Turn on that subscribe button and turn on bell notifications. In the description down below, you can find a link to our Discord right under the details. You should see it right down under the subscriber count. And you'll find a link to our website where you can read daily articles when it comes to the crypto market, and also links to things such as our Discord and our Twitter. And if you guys are here on Twitter Spaces and you haven't followed us yet, please make sure to go ahead and give a follow. I will be doing all of my weekday crypto specific spaces through the Because Bitcoin brand, and it really helps support myself as a content producer for you guys if you guys can share the space, share the page, and bring more awareness. We're trying to give more quality content in the crypto space and not so much of the froth, like, price expectancy. This is gonna 10x in a month. BTC is gonna go to like 4K next month or to 100K next month. We want to present you guys some quality content that's concise and easy to digest. And yeah, today's topic, we're going to talk about crypto and Web3 when it pertains to the venture capital space. There is a few key differences when it pertains to your average equity venture capitalist versus crypto venture capital. And there are many well-known firms such as Jump Capital, that's more like crypto specific based, and also things like Andreessen Horowitz, that they come from the equity markets, but they also have some experience in the game when it comes to the crypto venture side of things. So yeah, I want to say welcome everybody. Let's get the show on the road. Chris, how are you, my man? Feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, doing great, Wabi. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, VC is a super opaque space, probably even more so in crypto. So I'm happy to kind of talk about it. Um, yeah, as for me, I was introduced to crypto and kind of initially jumped to the conclusion that it was a solution in search of a problem. But at the same time, I kind of recognized that the market was relatively inefficient compared to stocks or equities. So I started by building, automated trading strategies, coding algorithms, kind of running a market neutral strategy. Yeah, in doing so, I was kind of forced to learn more about the technology, the respective ecosystems, use cases, that sort of thing. So I quickly fell down the rabbit hole. I spent a few years kind of working in various roles across crypto, mainly on the business development and community side, built out my network, and yeah, now I'm fortunate enough to be here at NGC. We're a crypto native fund focusing on early stage deals. We kind of define it as pre seed to Series A. You can occasionally find us participating as late as Series B. Um, Crypto VC is kind of unique because you have tokens and you have equity. Um, some VCs prefer to do only tokens. More traditional VCs prefer to do only equity. We're kind of agnostic. Frequently, we do equity plus tokens. So I feel I have a pretty good understanding of the space, and I'm happy to dive in.
Perfect, brother. And when you guys do due diligence, how exactly does that look at compared to, say, like your traditional like equity holder or venture? Like, what is it that you guys look at? Because to my knowledge, and it might be a bit of a more novice approach, but when you look at things from a startup perspective, from the equity markets, usually you'll have things like you know uh, profits, liabilities. You'll have like expected growth quarter by quarter, cash flow, their backers, things of that nature, right? Essentially, like a balance sheet. And how does that look like from a venture capitalist perspective, within the crypto market?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really depends firm to firm. Everyone kind of does it a little differently. And I can't go into kind of the weeds on how we do it specifically. I can kind of give you a high level overview. I think most firms, it's a combination of financial statements, like you mentioned, which includes like balance sheet, income statement, cash flows, that sort of thing. But crypto being so tech heavy, diving into the documentation, making sure that it makes sense on a technical level is really important. Um, then, there's partnerships, customers, reference checks are a huge part of due diligence. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into it. You really just want to make sure that all the risks that are associated with crypto specifically, you're kind of covering. And VC is, every investment is risky. Most startups do fail. Starting a company is very hard, and managing a successful company is even harder. So, considering that risk, you have to be careful that you're not doing deals with, um, you know, people who've rugged in the past or the technology doesn't make sense. So you really have to be careful. So due diligence is probably more so, even more important in crypto than it is in equity or something like that.
And for you, like, how have you seen the market as far as that goes, like on the venture side of things? Have the recent events sort of impacted the scene as far as like where projects want to be funded? Like, I know there are a lot of projects that were going to be funded by Alameda, but given their fallout, now they're sort of like being asked to be reduced by 70-80%. Is there some sort of like panic going on? You don't have to say too much, but like, given how quickly the market environment has changed over like the last year, are there implications in place to be more strict within the market, given that there are some sort of regulation practices that are likely to be put in place over the next 6 months?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I mean, FTX was a huge deal, but really this whole year has just been one thing after another. Um, DeFi Llama actually has a pretty good dashboard that tracks individual raises as well as kind of the monthly sum of institutional money flowing into crypto. And just to kind of put it into perspective, at the top last year, November 21, $7 billion from VCs flowed into crypto. And currently we're averaging about a billion month over month. So um, quite a difference. As far as FTX goes, yeah, I will say that holidays being here, everything's kind of slowed down. But I know several VC firms got hurt by FTX. Lots of companies got hurt. Um, so yeah, it did quite a bit of damage. I wouldn't say there's panic, but I think things have slowed down. And aside from FTX, I think the slowdown can be attributed to two other things. One, there was a lot of traditional VCs that came into crypto sort of at the top during the bull run last year, and they might be kind of taking a step back now and rethinking whether or not they actually want to be involved in this space. And that's fine. I also think there's less builders today than there were a year ago, and I think that's healthy. The people that are still building and raising money now truly are here for the long term. They really care about the technology. A year ago, there were a lot of people that had just got introduced to crypto and were here to make a quick buck, and I think a lot of that's been washed out. So, yeah, I think it's actually healthier now than it was, at the beginning of the year, from my perspective at least.
I agree with you on that front, dude. And me myself being in Miami, there's always some sort of meetup, and typically what you'll see a lot less builders, but a lot more sort of like the Moon Boy, LFG. This is what I'm talking about. This is how you throw a Web3 party. And now it's like the lineup for the first half of 2023 here in South Florida, it's actually more builder oriented, more dev and growth sort of events, not so much Moon Boy. So the phrase kind of goes like, you know, when when things are quiet, the conventions cater to the builders, right? And people that want to contribute to the space in any way that I can, that any way that they can. And then during a bull market, it's like wag me throwing champagne bottles in the air. So I myself, I noticed that just being a participant in both the capital and social aspect of this market. So I'm sure you have some normie friends that like don't really want anything to do with this industry, because usually like what you'll see is a lot of the social capital that was accrued within the bull market, you'll typically have like 90% of it just leave, and only half of them are likely to come back during the quiet stages um, of a market, right? And that's what we're seeing now. If you go on Spaces, right, you click that little Spaces tab, you click in, Web3 or crypto, you'll only see a handful of them left compared to the bull market, where like, dude, you run up a space at any time of the day and there'll be like thousands of people in them, you know? And so like spaces also contribute a market dynamic and kind of gauge how much social capital is within the system. So I appreciate you being here, brother. It really means a lot. I think that people can really gain a lot of value seeing the perspective of someone that's involved in the equity side of things. So with that being said, brother, like what are some of the cool things that you've seen being within that side of the industry compared to say like you know an equity VC? I'm sure that process is a lot more strenuous versus something that's more crypto related, because something that is quite common in this industry is that community is hugely emphasized. So I'm assuming it's a bit more friendlier, right? So, like, what are some cool things that you've seen being developed, sort of in like the background side of things that people may not know about? Like I know there are things like the metaverse, automation, AI, AR. Yeah, man. Feel free
Totally.
to give some alpha leak, bro. Like on a personal level, dude.
Yeah,
Feel
you
free,
bet.
dude.
It's really cool, getting to see what these builders are working on right now. A lot of cool stuff is being built. Um, I think, for the next bull run to come, there's really got to be some sort of narrative that's going to act as a catalyst to kind of kick things off. Two things I'm looking at right now: decentralized social networks and then gaming. I mean, if the past 2 years of Twitter have taught us anything, it's that when the people at the top are making content moderation decisions, there's always going to be some subset of people that are really frustrated by the decisions that are being made. Um, and I think the best solution is kind of allowing users to make, their personal decision with regard to the content that they see. And with these decentralized social networks, the protocol itself isn't actually censoring anything, right? There's these competing clients, or I guess you could call them front ends, that actually make different decisions regarding moderation, user experience, UI, that sort of thing. And then the users have the power to use and choose the specific front end that they want to. And that's kind of what, crypto or Web3 is all about, right? Is returning that power to the users and taking it away from these large centralized companies. So I think decentralized social is something that's going to be really big over the next year or two. My favorite right now is Farcaster. I'm not sure if anyone is on Farcaster, but if not, you should definitely check it out. It's in a closed beta right now, but you can get onboarded by DMing the founder. Lynn's Protocol is another one doing something similar. Yeah, that's definitely something to watch. And then gaming, I think last cycle we saw some games kind of pop up, but and they did catch quite a bit of traction, but they weren't, these AAA games that are attractive to traditional gamers. It was really just, people that were already involved in crypto. They saw it as a way to make more money. Um, I think the next cycle there's going to be some AAA games that come to fruition that will be attractive to both, crypto native people and traditional gamers alike. And I think that's going to onboard quite a few people to the space. I'm really focused right now on people that are working on building those catalysts that are going to onboard new people. I'm also super interested in things that are being done in the wallet space. Wallets are kind of the primary touch point for crypto, especially on chain. And currently, the user experience, the UI, it's not really user friendly. It's kind of complicated. I mean, it may not be for us who've been in crypto for a while, but for new people or even parents, grandparents, it's nearly impossible to kind of understand what you're doing. So people that are working on making wallets more user friendly, more secure, account abstraction, social recovery, those are two terms you hear thrown around a lot, but I think they're going to do quite a bit to improve the UI and user experience of wallets. So yeah, decentralized social. gaming, and then improvements in the UI for wallets. I think those are three big things that are going to change the way crypto is next cycle.
That's cool, man. I had a quick question, Chris. Do you think so? Like, is there an appetite for VCs to like run like the Axie Infinity model back, or like are they building like what kind of structured games are like getting funding, or are people interested in generally?
Yeah, games have gotten a lot of funding over the past 6 months. I think every game studio is kind of approaching it from a different perspective. Uh, I don't think VCs, the average VC wants to, run Axie back. A lot of the tokens, go straight up and then straight down to the ground. I don't think that's good for the space. I can tell you, VCs don't make money when that happens. I mean, it's a win-win for everyone when the token is sustainable, right? Um, and I think that there's probably going to be some successful games that don't even have a token. Play to earn is obviously a possibility, but it doesn't have to follow that model. There can be other, crypto games, I guess you could say, that don't involve a token. Maybe NFTs are the big thing in the game. It doesn't have to be some ERC20 token that 100 X's and then goes nukes down 99%. So I think there's going to be a lot of different models. It's kind of you kind of got to wait and see which one actually ends up being the leader in the space. But it's definitely something to watch.
I think, Chris, something that could be built upon is something like Twitter Spaces, right? It's sort of like the introduction to what Web3 can be, right? You've got um, essentially an audience from all across the world. So I know Elon wants to do something like a content creator program, and I know that's something that Theta had wanted to implement. And I think the models that Theta and Engine put out, as far as like content creation and decentralized applications, I think, you know, Twitter, if it can become an open source protocol, and again, this is a knock on wood, but a platform that can take that model and include spaces and include like a web wallet UI with all the protocols that are built in that ecosystem are included, you'll essentially have like this all in one application, right? So we were discussing decentralized social applications. And I think if you can have something where you can message people, you can message a lot of people within a group, retweet their content, quote tweet it, have a video content creation side of things. And I guess the way it would be monetized would be through activity within the system. So it would be like a use to earn model, like use to earn or produce to earn, right? Would kind of be sort of like a psyop for work to earn. It would be like an incentive to use the platform and also, to attract new users. So essentially, like, I would assume it's somewhat of I wouldn't say an MLM scheme, but sort of like, if you attract users, essentially there would be more attention to your content creation side of things, and the system would pay you out via some sort of consensus that just has not been built out yet. And it would be pretty interesting to see what sort of blockchain would be able to facilitate that high throughput activity. Because I don't think Ethereum is scalable enough to do that yet. But maybe with things that are ongoing and like the Arbitrum side of things, and more of like the layer two side can sort of scale that out, and potentially Polygon. Um, what would you say to that? Maybe something like the Polygon Matic network facilitating those sort of uh, those sort of activities, given that recently, in case you guys missed it, last week we had our boy Big Daddy T, Donald Pump Trump, you know roll out those NFTs that did what, Pain? They did like an 8x.
No, they did like a bro. They did like a 14x at the Pico top.
Yo,
They were like a
dude.
$100 mint. They were like $100 mint, and they went to like 0.86.
Dude, he essentially gave you a stimmy check. And one thing that I've been using my spare time in is kind of getting like community sentiment from other spaces, and I know it may seem a bit cringe to you guys, but you know, there is some sort of alpha in these quote unquote community spaces, which may or may not have people that are just absolutely coping. But Payne can tell you, I think we were in a Solana space, and
Yeah.
we were saying how, like, if Trump was on Twitter and he tweeted that out, those NFTs alone would have probably been responsible for a huge bid on something like Bored Apes or like the Crypto Punks, right? Because usually the narrative on CT goes like, oh, if one like blue chip NFT catches a bid, then the others will go up as well, kind of like the rising tide lifts up all things. And the community sentiment off of that was, oh no, if he did that on Twitter, all NFTs would have just like gone down by 70% over the next day. And I mean, look at what's happened in the short term since those NFTs are released. Essentially, it's added a lot of social capital back into the system. Ultimately, we do believe that we will go on to make new lows, but just because the market makes a lower low, that doesn't mean that it's indicative of the social capital leaving the system, because you do still have people that are in cash, such as myself, right? That, yeah, prices can go down 30, 40, 50% lower, but just like our boy Trader Mercury said a couple of episodes ago, it doesn't mean that, oh, we're gonna feel um you know scared, despair, what is it, anxiety, panic, capitulation, things like that. um
Anger.
yeah. So so to kind of bring back the topic to the conversation of what we were discussing, Chris, do you think existing networks such as Polygon, like slash Matic, people call them those two different names, like that, people don't know how to refer to them properly, but do you think a network like that has gone through this this bear market slash recessionary period, do you think something like that can potentially facilitate those killer social apps that you discussed?
Yeah, yeah, I think it could, or they could, but say you built a really successful app that onboarded, hundreds of thousands of people. Um, that value, that the transaction fees that are being paid, you'd really like it to accrue to your own protocol. There's a lot of value that gets lost in paying these gas fees, and on Matic, it's quite cheap. But I personally am under the impression that app chains, or subnets are going to kind of be a big thing over the next 2 years. I think AVAX is doing quite a bit in that space, Cosmos as well. So, those are the ecosystems that I would be paying attention to. And I know for gaming as well, a lot of people are choosing to run subnets. So that value gets accrued back to the game or the network, and it's not lost. And it's all about value accrual, right? And when people are paying the transaction fees, you want to make sure that you're capturing as much of that as possible.
And what about like other developments such as Celestia and what they're doing with their modular blockchain? It's sort of like a newer consensus, or something like Nillion Network, which would essentially have things running at super speed, essentially. Do you think something like that could also be in the works for these social apps? Because I know that AVAX also had some GameFi stuff during the last run. I just haven't been up to date with their developments, and it's kind of crazy, dude. Because like this time last year we were all in the layer one rotation. It was Luna would pump, then Sol would pump, AVAX would
Phantom.
pump. Yeah, and then it would always end with Phantom and Harmony, and it shows you right on the chart, dude. Like Luna reached $100 in December of last year, and then Solana had like that double top at like 250, 260, and then Phantom and Harmony peaked out in January. But I think like the biggest concern, bro, would have to be the bridge situation. That would have to be like something that is heavily implemented. And I think things like, if there was some way to integrate like Celestia with something like Layer Zero, if that's even possible, it's a complete knock on wood, then potentially you can roll that out. And I remember back in the last bear market, when the whole narrative was like, "Oh, interoperability, interoperability, layer ones," and there were all these catchy words. And my thesis back then was like, if there was some way to create native assets on something like Phantom, and perhaps bridge them to other networks, right? Then you can have something beautiful happen, right? And of course, one thing that I was hoping for back then was some sort of integration with Phantom and Cosmos, like some sort of interoperability, excuse me. And it's a bit hopeful. I am a techie as well. Like, I do enjoy this tech, and I have enjoyed using it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on things like Layer Zero and Celestia, um, partaking in things like GameFi, and also like what AVAX wanted to do with subnets? Do you think there's any possibility for those chains to kind of take over the narrative that was being seen towards the end of the last bull market? Because those things usually tend to be the ones that take over the narrative for the majority of the next cycle, right? You had things
Totally.
like Neo and Aeon and what was it, ICX, Wanchain, and Wanchain, take over the majority of the 2017 cycle, right? And then towards the end, you saw like the things that were going to be branded as layer ones, things like Zilliqa, right? Holochain.
Yeah,
Excuse the
totally.
excuse the ramble in the history lesson, man. I'm trying to give like as much context as possible.
Yeah, totally. I'm personally super excited about both Celestia and Layer Zero. Um, and I think if the app chain thesis is going to kind of come true, or even with all these layer ones, there really needs to be a better cross chain, user experience. Just over the past year, we've seen, I don't even know how many millions hacked from bridges with exploits and the like. Uh, so yeah, I think security is kind of the biggest concern. But I think Celestia and Layer Zero both have, crucial roles to play in that space. But yeah, I think we're probably still a ways away from a true seamless cross chain experience. And I think that that's going to kind of be, when true large scale user adoption comes, because currently Ethereum is just too expensive. And yeah, there's all these other layer twos and other ecosystems, but there really needs to be a cross chain, seamless experience for all this to work together, if that makes sense. It's kind of fragmented, and using bridges works, but it's just risky, and the user experience isn't that great. So I think Celestia is doing quite a bit, Layer Zero too, but I think we're still probably a ways away from a true seamless cross chain experience.
Yeah, those things tend to take like at least 3 years after their initial conception, which is what we saw kind of like that second half of 21, where everyone was just bridging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And a lot of the projects that wanted to be like cross-chain compatible ended up getting exploited, right?
Yeah.
Just look at the various things that happened on Solana. But yeah, man, if anyone is here that's a new listener, um, or maybe you let your YouTube video ride while you were cooking or something, I'm here joined by Chris, and he has experience in the venture capital space when it pertains to the digital asset market. And we're discussing all sorts of things, whether it's his own experiences in the market, or describing the current quote unquote liquidity crunch situation. And we're also talking about things that can be implemented from his standpoint, given that he is a professional in this field. and not so much the grifty the grifty individual on YouTube saying that, we're going to go to zero or we're going to go to 100 million. We're trying to present some quality content here, and yeah, appreciate your time, Chris. And just wanted to also point out that if you're here listening as a Twitter Spaces participant, I want to say thank you. And I also have a link to our Discord up below. And we have close to 900 members now. And it's always pretty lit in there. There's always activity, especially in the voice channel when we get closer to the weekends. I see our boy Premise here. He holds down the fort there all the time. And we have some of our BB Chads, Babel and James. They're pretty active in there, although Babel does tend to psyop me with his other persona. I think he's what is it, Tempest? I always get him confused. uh Babel and James, it's always a good time with them. So, to go back to like the user experience that we were touching up upon for yourself, Chris, over the last like year, 2 years, what have been your best experiences when it comes to UI, and also your worst? Because there's always two sides in the coin.
Yeah, totally. I think, and it's probably not a popular opinion, but I think centralized exchanges have actually, they have the best current user experience. And I think that kind of hurts the crypto space as a whole. I mean, we saw what happened with FTX. I think a lot of people feel safer on centralized exchanges. And the on chain experience really needs to improve quite a bit. Um, Obviously Solana's struggling at the moment, but I will say that their wallet, in my opinion, has the best user experience of any wallet I've used so far. Um, I think that when it comes to worst user experience, anytime I've bridged, sometimes I'm sitting there waiting for 10, 15 minutes, and I don't know if I just lost all my money or what's going on. I think bridging. Uh,
Bridging to Polygon is terrible, bro.
oh yeah, it's some of the worst. It's the worst user experience in crypto. So I think bridges have the most work to do, but wallets really too. I mean, everything on chain is kind of struggling from a user experience perspective.
Although
I,
having said that, the Solana does have the best phone in crypto.
guys, we're here joined by our friend Naka. Just to give
How's the
you,
Solana phone?
it works fantastic, dude. I'm actually using it right now.
Oh,
So,
hang on, wait
uh,
a second. I'm just getting a call on the Solana phone right now. Hello? Yeah, hello. This is Bogdanov. Dump it.
yeah, guys,
Dump it
we
for
want.
$13 and let Shamas laugh at all the plebs who bought the top. Holy shit, that was my first call on the Solana phone. He's right though.
Yeah, guys, we want to welcome Naka up on the stage. Good friend of the show. I consider him someone close in my network of friends here on CT. Known him for close to a year now, and always a good individual to have on here to provide his insights. And yeah, Naka, welcome. Feel free to ask Chris any questions during this interrogation. Uh, but yeah, dude. We wanna bring more of like somewhat of the institutional side on the show, and not so much like the grifter. Oh, like this token is gonna go up 100x in 2 months. And I think like with Twitter Spaces, if we can introduce more quality people and not focus so much on like journalism, right? Like some individuals that are like, oh, the SBF files and things like that. I think I think as we get closer and closer to a bottom, which personally I do think happens by the summertime, I think that more fun.
Sorry, Wabi. You we lost you for a second there. Maybe you were getting a call on the Solana phone as well.
I'm rugging. So yeah, Naka, feel free to join in, bro. Any questions you want to ask him, any sort of insight, that you want to give, feel free, brother.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my insight would just be I think altcoins are very risky right now. There are some projects I like, but the environment. I mean, I'm looking at Bitcoin dominance. I think it's going up. I think it's going up to 65%, and there's gonna be bodies, right?
Chris, from what Naka said, are these metrics that you guys look at? Like, do you guys look at volume leaving an ecosystem? Do you guys look at things like TVL from certain chains that dictate where like capital flows go into? Like, do VCs look at these things, or do they typically just look at macro events sort of thing? Because you can look at macro events, right, and stick to that, but if you weren't paying attention to crypto specific if you weren't paying to crypto specific events, then you likely got rugged on things like FTX, because there were some heavy derivatives volume coming from FTX, even though the tokens were fake. So do you guys look at crypto specific activity like on chain stuff?
Yeah, it's definitely something we take into account. I will say we don't spend all day looking at TVL and derivatives and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think if you're looking at projects that are trying to raise money, where they're building and which ecosystem they're building in, you really have to have a good idea of how that ecosystem is doing. What it looks like over the next year. Um, Crypto moves so quickly, right? There's information coming out basically every minute. So it's pretty much impossible to stay on top of everything. But I think yeah, there's a lot of things you can look at, but it's the on-chain stuff's not something that we sweat over.
So Chris, do you guys like invest in do you guys like allocate to existing projects, or is it pretty much like only new projects?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, we're early stage. I'd say most of the time the project is yet to launch. If they have launched, it's very new. Um, Most of the time, they probably don't have a token released, even if they are planning on eventually releasing it. So we define early stages pre-seed to Series A, most often seed rounds. So yes, they exist, but they're not maybe at the stage of what you would call a very predominant project, if that makes sense. They're very new.
And how does that work? Like getting equity within a token that getting equity within a company that wants to distribute a token. How exactly does that work? Like, is it more token based, or does it derive from like a company's actual sort of revenue? Like I know Aave, right? They have tokens, but like the way their model works, they essentially have like a balance sheet of profit and loss, and currently they're still in the green. Like they're an actual self-sustaining product that makes money, right? Same thing with protocols like Uniswap. And really, like, if you want to look at things that aren't profitable, you can sort of look like at the emissions of something like osmosis, where they're paying out their users more so than they're making profit, so they're essentially getting wrecked um as a development team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Um, Crypto's really different from traditional VC because of these tokens. You know, on one hand, they're super liquid compared to the equity, so they're attractive in that sense. But it really comes down to where the value kind of flows. There's more traditional companies, like say, let's Coinbase, if they weren't public, right, or Kraken. They have this equity that is essentially generating value from the revenue and the profits that the business is making. And if an exchange like that was to launch a token and it didn't do much, it didn't have much utility, it didn't see any of the value of the revenue. Um, yeah, it might 100x, but that's just based off pure speculation. I think from a VC's perspective, it's really about where the value is actually flowing. Yes, tokens are nice because they're liquid, but it's not always the right side of the cap table to be on. So we're more interested on, we'll do equity or token. It just depends on where that value is actually going to flow. Um, it's tough to have the value go to both the equity and the token holders. I think someone's going to lose out. So I think holding both is probably the best answer.
And those sort
I think you're cutting out.
is it
You're
more
rugging Wabi.
So Solana phone again. He didn't pay enough Sol, so
I'm curious. You guys running these spaces so often, I'm curious, kind of what sentiment you guys have gathered, and you know, it sounds like you guys don't think the bottom's in, but I'm curious, kind of where you think the bottom is, and how
can
long
you
it
guys
might
hear
take to
me?
get there.
Yeah, you're good now,
Am I
Wabi.
good? Can you hear
cut
me
out.
loud
Did
and
you hear
clear?
Chris's question?
Chris was asking when the bottom's going to be in, or whether we think the
Yeah.
bottom's going to be in.
Yeah,
Essentially,
so dude, as far as sentiment goes, since we are active on these spaces, so for myself, what I can say outside of like the Because Bitcoin Inner Circle community, I can share more of like the outside crypto stuff because a lot of us at Because Bitcoin we're paying way more attention to the macroeconomic side of stuff. So things like when is the Fed gonna stop increasing rates? When is quantitative tightening gonna stop? Essentially, we're all waiting for the quote unquote pivot when the real capitulation event actually happens, right? And we're also paying attention to things like earnings. We're paying attention to the housing market. And what I can tell you when it pertains to crypto specific sides, dude, it's just a bunch of cope and bag holders, people down 99% plus. They're holding on to hope, and you essentially have a lot of bag holders that are participating on these community exclusive spaces, but you also have individuals like myself that still want to keep up to date with developments on these chains, right? And some people think that we've bottomed here, some people think we bottom at 5K, some people think we bottom at 9K.
yeah. I mean, one thing I've been looking at is just the stablecoin supply, Chris. Um, it seems to be a pretty, you know, um, like a pretty strong signal is when the stablecoin supply starts going up again. The bottom's definitely in. Um, and it's just, if you look at the stablecoin supply, it's just been going down in a straight line. So, I mean, that's bearish. The macro picture is bearish.
I mean, we also have a few good things um, that are shaping up in the second half of 2023. I can tell you what I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at this shipping index called the Harpex Shipping Index. And essentially, it tracks global supply chain and the cost of manufacturing and also to ship those containers out. And it was literally up only until like late 2021, right? And now the chart is down only. And if it keeps at this rate of change, then it's not too hard to dictate that we can see 3 to 4% on CPI readings. And you also have things from China, like the amount of cement they're producing, which is pretty much at all-time lows. Same thing with home builder sentiment. Those are at all-time lows. Small businesses are pretty much at such a slow growth that they're back to pre-pandemic levels, right? And you also have the rate hikes, which are truly going to be kicking into the economy in Q1 of next year. And something that not many people are paying attention to is that, dude, the last amount of dollar bills that were printed was in March of this year, right? And typically, monetary policy takes at least 2 quarters for that to be factored in. Which, in my opinion, I think given the amount of money that we've produced, a lot of that money wasn't factored into CPI until the summertime, where we saw 9, 8% readings. And I think, now that it has been 2 quarters since the first 75 rate hike, I think you're going to see like the actual tightening be shown into the market. And how that reflects into the crypto market are things like evaluations in these upcoming companies being asked to be reduced by 50, 60, 70%, right? A lot of these companies that want to be released next year onto the crypto market, they want to be these unicorns valued at 1 billion plus, and in this market environment there's just not going to be that demand to further induce that sort of greed. So I definitely think that that is something to be watched. And something that Naka said, which is really interesting, is the amount of stable coins in circulation. The moment that that thing gets turned on, you can be held to a high regard that your risk to reward is to the upside, because essentially that's our JPOW, the money printer, the USDC printer, the tether printer,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. and
yeah,
also
you've got it.
and also like we do have some things in line going for us going into the second half of 2023. We're going to be less than 1 year out from the halving, right? And history tells you that the best time to accumulate crypto in general is always when you're around that mark, right? Because usually a good metric to go based off of when it comes to the halving is look at the current price a year out, and essentially you want to double it, right? And that is somewhat of a good metric because miners do have to be profitable to remain in the system. So I think when we reach that second half of 2023, I think you'll have a lot of social capital be added back. A lot of more eyes are going to come back into the market, and they're going to be like, wow, like, Bitcoin is at X price and the halving's coming up. And, the Fed, then maybe like, the Fed quote unquote pivoted and the S&P is at like 31, 3,200. At that point, there's a case to be made at fair value. So that's enough of my ranting.
I mean, the other thing you could say, right, is we're not going to bottom whilst you have Barry Silbert threatening to market sell 20% of Grayscale. Because,
Yeah, yeah.
like, how the
Well,
fuck is the
let's
market going to bottom with
let's
him threatening to do that, right?
let's
Yeah,
ask
it's a very, very
let,
big headwind.
let's ask Chris when it pertains to that situation. Chris, my man, is that a situation that you guys are keeping a close eye on? Like, are you guys actively aware of the current liquidity crunch when it pertains to entities such as Grayscale? And I'm not going to entertain Binance because, like, I don't want to add to the Weenie Hut Junior drama. I really don't, man. Because you're essentially betting on the whole crypto ecosystem to fall out. So if you want to give us some of that insight, Chris, feel free. And after that, we'll just do like a round table because I see we have our boy Premise here, who's a market analyst over at Because Bitcoin. He does the morning show and also the afternoon show. And then we also have our boy Soy here from Neutron.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I hope that there are no more dominoes to fall, but I think DCG and Grayscale probably has the biggest potential to have a huge negative impact on the crypto markets. So yeah, it's something we're definitely keeping a close eye on. It seems to be developing kind of by the day. Um, but I'm not privy to the conversations that they're having. I know that they had hired an investment bank to kind of advise them on potential solutions, but I'm not sure what they're thinking at the moment. I think there's a lot of ways it could play out. But yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And with as far as Binance goes, I mean, in crypto, it's probably always better to be safe rather than sorry. But I would be shocked if they were doing anything that was suspicious, or if anything was true with the FUD that's been going around. But yeah, always better to be safe than sorry. That's for sure.
Would you say that it's not necessarily going to affect their business model? They make money on fees and liquidations, right? do you think that would impact more of their innovation side, like their venture side? Because they've been known to incubate products that do add value and social capital to the market. You know, they helped out incubating Matic and other things like I think it was Kava. It was this DeFi hub over not DeFi hub. It was a lending market back in DeFi summer, which really added value to that narrative. Do you think it might affect more of that side, like their innovation stuff, and not so much their exchange?
Well, I mean, yeah, Binance has done quite a bit for the ecosystems. They've done a lot, but if you there's charts that show their reserves, and despite all the FUD, yeah, there's been billions that have been withdrawn, but it's actually a quite small amount compared to the actual size of their exchange. My personal opinion is a lot of this has been overblown. Um, that said, I mean, anything could happen. I kind of felt similar with regard to FTX. So who knows? I personally think Binance is going to be just fine.
Same here, brother. But we'll pass it on to our boy Premise. Premise, how you doing, my man? Feel free to add to the conversation or
Yo, yo,
ask Chris any questions, man.
yo. Yeah, I wanted to kind of chime in on the Bitcoin talk and stuff. I think Chris was kind of asking when the bottom is. And, Chris, I'd love to reach out to you sometime later and figure out more what you do on your side of things. I'm hoping to one day get into the VC space, not quite there yet. And so far, I've been trading. But, this is my opinions on Bitcoin. And I think there's a lot of good news surrounding Bitcoin lately that people are overlooking because of the bearish news of Binance. The BIS, Bank of International Settlements, these are the guys who pointed out the 80 trillion problem in the Forex swap market, by the way, had made an announcement 2 days ago. They're advising banks to hold 2% exposure to crypto, all banks. But that can't take place until January 1st, 2025, after the halving in 2024. I think Bitcoin does go on another run. I think the bottom happens sometime. Maybe it could be sometime this year, but I don't think we have to worry about a run into the next halving. Until the halving fails, I will believe the halving will always predict the next all-time high. And we already have a catalyst set up where the BIS is recommending banks. No one knows about this. No one's been talking about this today. And
Yeah, dude, that
Wabi,
that really got
I don't
swept
think
under
that's
the
actually
rug.
true. I don't think
Guys,
that's actually true. They're not recommending that banks hold
They're
Bitcoin.
allowing them to,
guys,
right?
guys,
They're allowed.
guys,
is
and
that not the same, or are y'all saying
guys,
that
No,
they're
it's not.
saying,
I mean,
hey,
it's
no
like
matter what?
Yeah,
I
it's
could look, I could be the police and I could say to you, you're allowed to drink like one half of a shot of vodka and still be legal to drive. I'm not recommending you drink and drive. I'm just saying that's the limit. If you go over it, I'm going to arrest you. That's basically what they're doing.
That's fair. That's fair. I like that. But the fact that they looked into it, I'm gonna read more on the report. I think they. Here's the thing. There's an 80 trillion forex swap debt out there that no one can repay, and I think having exposure to stuff like crypto assets is something that they decided to look into shortly after reporting that. Then they report 2% exposure. So you're right. They're not saying, hey, have 2%. But it's still just a report saying, there's nothing wrong with having 2% of trillions of dollars in the crypto
yeah,
market. Man, I'll take that.
premise. I also want to add to that. Um, about 6 years ago, there was an entity that was created called the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and J.P. Morgan does have a seat at that table, and so the banks have already been within the ecosystem for quite a number of years. And actually, you also have individuals that come from the equity markets that have been here for 10 plus years. You have Pantera, right, which currently is the only hedge fund at the moment that has accumulated BTC for their clients at under $100. And then you also have the guys at Galaxy Digital. And despite all the turmoil that's occurred this year with other funds, there are still individuals that have created the foundation for this asset class that are still solvent, that still haven't gone anywhere, and are still actively contributing to the ecosystem. And I'll pass it over to Soy. What's going on, Soy? In case you guys missed it, Soy is one of the developers for Neutron, and essentially they're building out the uh, the official DeFi hub for the Cosmos via their L1. So, Sui, I want to welcome you, man. How are you? If you want to add anything to the conversation we're having with our boy Chris or any questions, when it pertains to the venture capital side of crypto, feel free, man. Go ahead.
Hey guys, mate. Sorry, I've just literally tuned in now. I'm not quite sure where you're all up to. I just thought I'd tune in and see what the chat was about.
Yeah, we're just discussing with Chris about the venture capital side of things when it pertains to the digital asset space.
hmm
So yeah, man, we've been here for about an hour already. So if you have any questions when it pertains to that, feel free, dude.
No specific questions for me on that. I mean, in terms of like the neutron side of things, we are still in our sort of raising period. I think we're looking to complete that by sort of mid-January. We're sort of like wrapping up deals and stuff like that at the moment. So like, there's definitely still money out there. There's money definitely still coming into crypto from VCs. I can't really say too much more than that. But yeah, that's kind of the neutron perspective at the moment.
Well,
Yeah, just
thank you,
kind of
man.
kind of
Thank
adding
you.
on.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you, brother. That's definitely good to hear, man. I like the fact that there's still some social capital left from individuals that want to contribute to the space on a round to round level. So, dude, thank you for adding that, bro. Thank you.
I think
Go,
I
go
think
ahead,
we
Chris.
bottom. I think we bottom when people are saying there's no more VC money coming in. Everyone thinks it's a scam. Everyone's broke. It's all going to zero, and that's the bottom.
I mean, I can say that there are a lot of VC funds that are very committed to the space, and it would take so much to kick us out. So, kind of
That's exactly
echoing
what we
what Soy
need
said.
then. What would it take? What would it take to get these VC funds to just give up and say that's it? It's all a scam. We're out. Bitcoin. If Bitcoin was like under 10K for like 2 years, if ETH is in the low hundreds, like multiple exchanges blow up, would that get them out?
I'm sure. If all that were to happen, there would probably be a few
Some
firms
dude
that would
porn.
reconsider where they're at. But
Exactly.
a lot of people are committed. I think it would take a lot. And kind of echoing what Soy said, yeah, people are still raising successfully. It's slowed down a little bit, but there's still quite a bit of money that's being deployed every single day.
The thing you got to remember as well is like these guys aren't looking at the halving. They're not looking at 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. They're looking at 5 years, 10 years. Um, like I mean, there's one token that I've sort of been quite keen on recently that's actually doing really well somehow in this market. It's called Agoric. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of Agoric.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I mean they launched mainnet this year. Their first raise was in 2018. So it kind of shows you like the length of time frame that these guys sort of invest over. And so yeah, I think these the big money, the smart money takes a long term view, gets in whilst markets are like this. Um, Obviously when it comes to like negotiations and stuff like that, the current state of the market isn't particularly in the favor of anyone launching a new token. So yeah, I'm sure negotiations are difficult, but ultimately, yeah, there's money out there, and it's long term money.
Hey guys, for those of you in the audience, if you want to come up, add to the conversation, or ask a question, feel free to hit that request button, and I'll bring you right up.
But
And
if you're in this for like 10 years, it seems a bit crazy to be in crypto. Like I don't know. Like think about what crypto was 10 years ago, and then think about like there are only really two investments you could have made 10 years ago that wouldn't have gone to zero, and that's Bitcoin and Litecoin. Like anything else you did would just be dead. So I'm not convinced on the 10-year time horizon personally. I
So,
said
the funds are typically set up, 8 to 10 year funds, and the capital is typically deployed over 1 to 4 years or so, give or take. Um, so yeah, it's definitely a long term view. That said, with tokens, I mean, you don't have to hold an investment for 10 years. I mean, ideally, I mean, VCs wouldn't be dumping on day one, but I do think that there's VCs kind of take a longer term approach to the market than maybe the average investor would for sure, in my
I mean,
opinion.
wouldn't like isn't the kind of cliche that you have people like Chamath and he basically gets into Sol at like 3 cents or something and then just dumps it all at the top and the whole thing just dies. It's all a scam and he gets the money. I mean, obviously not everyone's like that, but certainly, I mean, that's an incredibly good business model because you're getting like risk-free reward. You can get in so cheaply that basically any price that the thing trades at is an just outrageous profit. Why would you want to invest for 10 years if you have that business model of it's kind of like legalized heroin dealing. Like you're just selling tokens to degens at like 1000x markup. I wouldn't, if I was a VC, I wouldn't be in it for 10 years. I'd be like, how many months until I can dump this? And
So
then do it all again.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of VCs that take that approach, but I would strongly encourage anyone building in this space to be very cautious about who you allocate tokens to or even equity. You want to make sure you're bringing on people that do have a longer term view. Just as an example, we did Solana at Seed, and we have not fully exited that position at all. So there are definitely a lot of firms within crypto that do take a longer term approach, and I think that's for the benefit of these protocols. So you got to be careful about who you allocate, capital or allocate tokens to for sure.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
brought up.
I'd definitely echo that as well. I mean, the other thing you can look at is, vesting terms and lockup periods and stuff like this. So, like, if you guys getting into Solana at 3 cents and he's out at, $2.50 or something, and that's been in the space of like a year and a half, then, for that to even be possible, then, there's got to be sort of minimal lockup periods, minimal vesting, which sort of shows the mentality of the investors in the first place, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, and if an investor is kind of turned off by whatever vesting period the company wants to do, I would consider that a red flag. Um, you definitely want to align incentives, and you don't want someone to come on and be allocated a shit ton of tokens and tell you they're in it for the long term, but then sell as soon as the lockup period's over with. So definitely be careful for sure. I mean, there's a lot of VCs that are in it just for the quick buck.
And we have Journal FFC up here. Feel free to ask your question or add to the conversation, brother. We're just currently wrapping up, man.
All right, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Always have tremendous respect for venture capitalism. It's like especially in this realm because everything's like open source software. You know, you make it, I copy paste it, kind of thing. So like, in order to be able to monetize it, it's very impressive from my perspective, at least. And I don't really understand how that works often. And one thing in particular that I wanted to ask you about was something you mentioned earlier, was had to do with wallets. Because with the blockchain, you got network effects and everything, and the blockchain, you can copy paste the software, but you can't copy paste the network. Well, with a wallet, it's like running client side, right? So I'm just wondering if like maybe you could kind of like elaborate a little bit on how like that sort of thing gets monetized or sold or invested into.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, a lot of wallets take and blockchain explorers, and there's quite a bit of things in crypto that I would consider public goods that aren't necessarily in it to make as much money as possible, but are rather trying to grow the pie, if you will. Onboard more people to crypto, make it easier to use. And while there's not a bunch of money in that, I think that it's necessary for crypto. And there are firms that are willing to support, public goods per se, if that makes sense. Just because we think that it's better for the ecosystem at large.
I guess you could also launch a token for the wallet, though.
Yeah, I mean, and there's rumors that MetaMask will launch a token, and I'm sure that investors will receive part of that token in kind.
Yeah,
Hey guys,
absolutely.
I want to remind you that Market Talk is in an hour. If you guys are listening here in the audience, tune into our boy Carter for Market Talk. And usually after Market Talk, a few hours after, you'll have my show. But today is an exception given Chris's busy schedule. And for those of you listening on our YouTube via replay, uh, I want to remind you that we do have a consistent stream of daily content for you guys. We have the morning news with Premise and our boy Snorlax. And then we have our mid afternoon segment, lunchtime segment at 12 p.m. Eastern time, with our boy with our boys from the morning news, and also Max, our CEO, who's down here in the audience. What's up, Max? And also Big Dog Bandemic. Then after that, we have Market Talk with Carter, who covers the macroeconomics equity side of things. And then you have myself uh, trying to go for that 7 p.m. Eastern time, but it is difficult when you do have these special guests. But further down the line, I will be looking to also do some formatted content for you guys, more of like a one-on-one thing, and make 7 p.m. Eastern time as consistent as possible, or sort of that bracket between 7 9 p.m. where most of the crypto world radio audience shows up. But if you're tuning into us now, we want to thank you. Did not expect this many people to show up at this time, so thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for showing up and coming to support your boy. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the content that has been produced here, and have enjoyed my rambles and the conversations between myself, Chris, Soy, um, and Premise, and thank you, Journal, for coming up here. And one thing that I do want to mention before we wrap things up here, because I know Chris does have to go shortly, is that Avalanche and AVAX subnets were being mentioned, and one thing
Chris
that
is
is
bullish.
yeah, one thing that we have mentioned is that using the AVAX C chain to purchase Snickers bars after we bridge from Solana uh, and Doge to AVAX to purchase Snickers bars. When you have that clean experience, it can put a smile on your face. So yeah, just a bit of an inside joke that we have going on here in the
Bro, I
community.
was
Yeah.
howling when you had that big ass space and like you were
Yeah,
saying, yeah,
yeah. I
you were
was
talking
accused.
about Apex, and
Yeah,
then okay,
You were really triggering the Bitcoin maxis with that,
they
by the
were
way.
pressed.
They were so triggered.
They were. I
yeah,
was listening to that space you were in yesterday,
yeah,
Naka too, where you were talking about Rune. They were not having it in that big space with the
I
space.
think they're being unfair to Rune. Seriously,
I
like
know it's
I
a
give them.
good project.
I found the one altcoin that isn't a fucking scam, and they don't like it. You just know
yeah,
there's just no helping some people.
yeah. Because like the way Thorchain works is essentially like if there's liquidity in the system, it'll be profitable. So it's essentially like a solvent
It's a
solvent.
leveraged bet.
Yeah,
It's a leveraged bet on the whole of crypto. It's
yeah.
actually
Pretty
probably the
much.
one altcoin
Yeah,
you really want to buy in the bear market. At
yeah,
least maybe there's like one or two others, but
yeah,
yeah, it is
yeah,
what
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
like total
yeah.
market
I
cap on
think
5x.
I think I think
Yeah,
I think
basically, yeah.
I think like if we want to bet on decentralization, we do need more products like that, and not so much. Oh, this chain has so many NFT collections. We have this VC. Kevin O'Leary talking about it. It's going to go up 1,000x. We need actual products that produce revenue, no matter the market conditions. So that's why, like here at Because Bitcoin, we do not encourage shit coins. We like to encourage things that actually produce revenue, that actually have something tangible that you can look at and run them by the numbers. You'll never see some sort of like super low cap gem, right? That's like having a million
But what
APY.
Wobby, I thought the whole point of your show was to encourage shitcoins, and then
No, no,
Carter's
no, no,
show is
no.
to tell people not to buy them.
No, 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 no. The purpose of Crypto World Radio is to educate individuals on various topics in the space, right? Like today, and also onboard products that haven't been fully realized in the crypto ecosystem, such
Like
as
shitcoins.
no, no, dude, things that are actually being built out and can actually have revenue streams on
Oh, shit coins
no,
that are
no.
being built out.
No, dude. No, 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 no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I am not going to be that guy. Don't put that Zach XBT
If it's over
thing
a
on me,
million
dude.
market cap, you're late, bro.
If it has a website, too late.
Yeah, yeah, dude. So, yeah, man. Did anyone have some closing thoughts here before I give my closing statement?
I mean, just dump it. Basically, dump it all, clean it all out.
Dude, Chris is
Fucking
gonna tell his guys to set that infinite twop selling, man.
infinite twop sell. In fact, don't even twop, just market sell. Market
Dude,
sell.
guys, but you know, if our boy Zuzi, who's gonna be back here shortly, if he hears that, dude, he's gonna send all those shorts to zero, bro. I'll ask him to put in that favor for our boy Air Mass. Oh, and speaking of Air Mass, he will be a guest on my show this Friday, the day before Christmas, and we're gonna talk some fundamentals, bro.
It's the best
What's
Christmas present I ever could have received, bro.
Exactly, dude.
Hang on. Wait a second. Air Mass is talking fundamentals. Has he been liquidated?
No,
Because I know he was like leverage. He was leveraged along Zoom and Teladoc, right? Has he been liquidated yet? And he's talking about fundamentals now.
no,
He bought a
that's the
shitload of
topic.
metacalls too.
That's the topic that I want to discuss with him, dude. Because like,
Okay.
he
I think he's been liquidated. I'm gonna have to check.
No. Air Mass is a friend of the show, and you know, he's
got
a national,
infinite collateral.
Yeah.
Infinite collateral.
Payne, any last statements that you want to give before I give my goodbyes?
Not too much, man. Thank you, Chris, for coming on. He was a good friend of mine. Grew up with him, and appreciate you coming on the show, brother. Thanks for showing out. It was meant a lot to have you up here with me and Wabi. I've been asking for a while, but I know you're busy. So I just wanted to say thanks, dude. Appreciate it. And thanks to all the other speakers as well.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. It's been a blast. Hopefully, I'll be back soon.
So, yeah, anything you want to add before we close the call? I think he's gone AWOL. Journal FFC, any closing thoughts?
I've had all my thoughts, man. I appreciate you.
No problem, man. No problem. All right, guys. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning into my show, Crypto World Radio, episode 7, with our boy Chris. Thank you so much for coming on here. It's been great to initiate you onto the Because Bitcoin community. Guys, if you're here listening on Spaces, be sure to follow Because Bitcoin and turn on bell notifications to keep up to date with consistent daily news on the market when it pertains to crypto events. We've been putting out more content when it pertains to those things, and also so you can be aware of what time my spaces will be, including our guests. And you know, early next year I will be having a streamline of consistent guests on here, from developers to community members like Naka and Payne, and also consistent reoccurring guests such as Zuzi and Chris, who do have experience when it comes to the institutional side of things.
Hey,
So with that
Wabi,
being,
Wabi, I'm not a community member. I'm
you
still
know
in
what
cash.
I mean, dude. You know what I mean, dude.
I'm still in cash, bro. I'm not a community
you're
member.
Hey,
Okay?
I will say, Wabi, Chris is ready to make us millionaires, bro.
he's ready to make us what?
Millionaires.
Yes, man.
Millionaires.
Yes, millionaires. That's what I'm talking about, bro. That's just facts.
We'll have to talk
Fucking
about that
go.
next time.
Exactly. So I guess I'll put it out there as well. Early next year, a surprise for the Bitcoin community will be having Nillion Network on the space. The founder of the project helped the creation of things like the Reserve Protocol, NFT.com, and also Hedera Hashgraph. So it's definitely not some grifter, rugger sort of vampiring off of the market. We're trying to bring you guys value content in this process that I'm in called Crypto World Radio, right? So yeah, if you're listening to us from YouTube, be sure to subscribe. Click that note bell notification so you can keep up to date with our content, live streams, videos, things of that nature. Leave some comment for some feedback. Always appreciate you guys giving me feedback, but I want all those DMs that you guys send me to be shifted onto the comment section on YouTube. It really helps us out with the algorithm and those things. And also, if you're here on Spaces, be sure to click that Discord link and join me and a few other of the members of Because of Bitcoin and join in on the conversation. We're always active on there 7 days out of the week. And I want to thank you again. It means so much that you guys tune in to these spaces and hear me ramble. I remember each and every one of you who come up here on the speaker panel, and even as listeners, there are some people that I always recognize. I see Medeveci on there. I see Avocado Toast. I see YOLO. I see Kingsblade. I see Nicholas. I see Crypto Cowboy. I see Sisu. I'm always aware of who's a listener and who's a consistent speaker, adding value to the conversation. I love you guys. God bless you. I'll see you on the next episode. Take care. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is King Wabi on behalf of Because Bitcoin with another conclusion of Crypto World Radio. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm gonna get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, and you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians. You would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000. Depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. You can ping your phone. Now, the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.